What evil prank have you pulled off? People in school used to always take my Gatorade. So I took an empty bottle, filled it with dyed salt water, and let them take my drink. Not gonna lie, it was hilarious watching one person to spit salt water in the middle of class only for their unbelieving friend to do the same. Picked out every last marshmallow from my sister's box of Lucky Charms. Then took a photo of me eating a bowl of Just Charms. Printed it. And put in the bottom of the bag. I then sealed the bag back up. Hot glued the box and back in the pantry it went. I lived in Korea for a bit. When my mom came to visit, I told my Korean girlfriend it was an American custom to greet older women by touching elbows. I told my mom the same story about Korean customs. It was a thing of beauty. They were not pleased. One night I replaced every framed object in my boss's office with a picture of me making a stern face. Posters, certificates, photos, etc. Took like 3 hours because he had like 30 framed things in his office. The next day I made sure I was out doing field work to make him sit with it most of the day. He had a lot of foot traffic to look at his office that day. Over a decade ago I worked in the warehouse of a guitar center. We dealt with inventory, shipping and receiving. We had a dumpster behind the store in a shared parking lot that people would leave random things in even though it was not a public dumpster. One day we found a broken beach chair in an open cardboard box. The box had a shipping label on it. It was left in such a way that it was easy to assume that the chair box combo was left by the same person. We packed the beach chair in another box and shipped it back to the customer. I wish I was there to see the person's face when they received their trash back via UPS. I remember it like it was yesterday. At summer camp my cabin's leaders found a little snake that wasn't doing so well, so they decided to put it in an old terrarium in our cabin. A few of the guys were nervous about it. So the next day when the leaders decided the snake was well enough to release, I asked that they keep quiet about releasing it. When the other guys got back to the cabin and found no snake in the terrarium, chaos ensued. My mum's laptop wallpaper was a picture of her granddaughter. I copied the picture 100 times and made her wallpaper a slideshow of the same picture over and over again. So the file would change but nothing would change visibly on the monitor. The pictures would change every 10 seconds. On one of the images I painted a tiny little curly mustache on her. So randomly for 10 seconds my niece would have a mustache. My mum thought she was either losing her mind or had a computer virus, and every time the mustache popped up, it was gone by the time she tried to show anyone. Not a prank I pulled off, but one I was victim to. My manager had left me in charge of the store when I was 16. Not legal, but that's a whole other mess. For a whole weekend. Saturday went well and I was happy with how I went. Although my paranoid brain is always concerned about whether or not doors are actually locked. I'm the same with my house. But the store was worse. So I make my dad drive down to the store to double check that everything is okay. 15 minutes later I get a phone call from him saying, "Manager, and the police are here because the door was unlocked and people were inside." Cue to me on the floor in tears hyperventilating. While my dad is telling my mum, who had since picked up the phone, that he was only kidding and that everything was fine. I used to work for a cruise line. A passenger asked if the crew lives on the ship full time. I and my coworker explained that no. The crew leaves every night to fly back to Miami and then returns each morning. She walked away satisfied. After that cruise was over, our manager was sharing the passenger evaluations with us and was confused about one in particular. It was a woman who had stayed on deck 14 and had complained that she couldn't sleep at night because of the noise of the crew helicopter. Fact 1. 200 crew do not leave every night but do live on the ship. Fact 2. That ship didn't even have a helipad. Question: WTF was she hearing every night? One that was played on me. I took my SATs, college entrance exams, for those outside the US, on the 1st of April. Should have known, right? But apparently, I'm not that smart. That night I went out with a group of friends. And when I got home my mom met me with a serious look on her face. She told me that the testing committee had called. That there had been an error and all test papers from that day were lost. Everyone was being contacted to schedule a date to retake the exam. She totally sold it. Face. Reactions. Everything. I bought it hook, line, and sinker. And she let me believe it until lunchtime the next day. My mom is a diabolical person. Working in a hot factory. Supervisor and job planner in this enclosed cubicle with a window AC unit in the middle of the shop, aka nice 68 in there while we sweat our ass off in 95-110 F heat. Kinda hot and pissy and always flies around. I kept grabbing the flies alive. Walking into the cubicle to ask a usually legit question or say I'm just cooling off and opening my hand behind my back. I put 14 of those strikers in there in one shift. He never did catch on I was doing it and the planner was pissed swatting around, there were so many flies in there. Supervisor was cleaning out every crevice thinking some food is supporting life now somewhere. 1 year. My sister had to move back into my parents' house. I was like 15. She was a little older. Mid-20s. April Fool's comes. And I know my sister woke up at like 6 AM. So I took out the light in the kitchen. Put Vaseline all on the refrigerator handle. And put a rubber band around the water gun on the sink. I waited for her to go in the kitchen. I was in my room pretending to be asleep. And all I heard was shit. Followed by a shit followed by her screaming my name and waking up my parents. My parents were not happy. Floor was soaked with water. And it woke both of them up. I'd do it again though. Edit, water gun thing. There is a small little black sprayer to the right of the sink. You pull it out. It has a hose connected to it. And you can spray down dishes and such. I used to work at a science tutoring center when I was in college and my gap year before professional school. One of the things we taught very often was anatomy. So naturally we acquired a few skeletons and various skulls with some variation in how they looked or were marked, etc. Well, I was closing one night. And I knew my co-worker was opening the next morning early. So before I locked up I assorted all of the skeletons and skulls in a welcome party near the front door. I had one immediately at the opening of the only door into the room with several backup skeletons and skulls just behind at a table together watching on. The best part was that you have to turn on the lights manually and that switch is immediately to the side of the door opening. So when she reached down to turn on the lights she had to come face to face with some lifeless skeleton skull in the middle of the shady opening. Needless to say she screamed. And it was loud enough to make our boss come to see if she was okay. Woke up to some colorful texts LMAO. Still proud of that one honestly. Dude was harassing my ex because he used to have her cell phone number. Was being a real freaking creep. Anyways. I created an email address. Signed up to Kijiji and placed an ad offering an 80 inches 3D TV for free with some excuse about a bad breakup and not wanting her to get it. I asked people to only text or call. I then went to bed and forgot all about it until the next day at work I get a text from my ex asking if I had done something on Kijiji. The dude was begging her to take the ad down and apologizing. I checked the email and there were 5 pages of responses even though I had told them not to email but to call or text. Dude's phone must have been ringing constantly. I took the ad down and she never heard from him again. Out with my flatmates at the pub. One had brought a bunch of mates with him and they were being quite loud, whereas I prefer a quieter meeting. Still, I was a bit tipsy too. So, I filled one of the spare shot glasses on the table with vinegar. I assumed when I passed it to him he'd smell it and realize. Nope. He downed that poop. Then coughed and spat it back into the glass. I got pranked. Does that count? Was at a house party at my then girlfriend's place. She knew me really well and knew that I've got a fairly competitive spirit. The place is really dark. She turns to me in the dim light and says, "My name. I bet you can't fit an orange in your mouth and eat it all in one bite." Wasn't about to say no to a challenge, so I took her up on it. Only it wasn't an orange that she'd peeled but a lemon. Welded a co-worker's boot to the floor. He had worn out the toe caps on his steel-toed boots. While he was making a weld kneeling inside a large piece of equipment, on steel, I put a small tack weld on his boots so he had trouble breaking it loose and getting up. Once I asked a friend for another friend's phone number. He gave me a teacher's number. I then went on to send multiple messages in a fake angry tone to my unsuspecting teacher. Frick that diabolical genius of a friend. Bought a new TV after saving up for a couple months. Next day I played a video on the TV to make it look like it fell and was broken cracked. And my housemates all individually fell for it, delighted with myself. Kept both regular and Honey Nut Cheerios at the house because my mom and my dad each ate one type and hated the other. Unless you look close, they appear the same, so one day I switched the boxes. The looks were priceless. One summer in college, I worked in the registrar's office, registering all the incoming freshmen. A prof who was a mentor to me was teaching freshman seminar and asked me to handpick a class for her. Straight A students. High sats. Whatever. So I did. 15 students. All named Sarah. I created a fake uniform policy poster for my high school. It wasn't perfect, but people were idiots, so they fell for it. It took everyone about a week to actually read the poster and see that it was obviously fake. Some people still showed up on the first day wearing the uniform that I designed. Edit, the uniform wasn't anything idiotic looking. Just khaki pants, white button shirt, church shoes, and black socks. The outrage was mostly from the fact that people couldn't wear their name brand clothes as a flex. I put hot sauce on my little brother's toothpaste one morning when we were kids. He apparently thought he was being poisoned. Gradually over the course of 2 weeks moved my co-workers' monitors closer to the front edge of the desk. Like 1 stroke 4 per move. Until they were so close a keyboard barely fit. Stupid small desk, she grumbled. Near the end, I then moved them back. Just as slowly. Over a few weeks. She never caught on. Flipped the lights on and off while my sister and friends played with a Ouija board. Hasn't quite been the same since. I made fake versions of Internet Explorer that turn your PC off when started in the ICT class at school. I farted under the covers, then pointed at the ceiling above my GF and shouted spider so she'd throw the blankets over her head. Later when she told her parents, that turned out to be the thing that earned her dad's respect for me. Made him laugh so hard he needed an inhaler. In high school I went into the boys' bathroom and replaced all the soap in the dispensers with pancake syrup. 2 of my friends have never met each other. Before they spoke I told both of them that the other is a bit deaf. They shouted at each other for a few minutes before they realized that I'm an asshole. When my brother and I were in middle school, my brother liked to skateboard with our next door neighbor. One day, my brother and the neighbor took the sheet of plywood from under my brother's upper bunk bed, no one slept in the upper bunk, out of the house and started making a skateboard ramp out of it in the neighbor's adjacent yard. My parents had explicitly told him that he wasn't allowed to do that. Now, in my defense, my brother teased me unmercifully, to the point of tears. On multiple occasions. So keep in mind that he had had it coming for a long time. Anyway. An evil little plan hatched in my brain. I ran to the upstairs window and yelled down at them. Brother's name. Guess what? Exclamation point. Mom knows everything and she is SOOO mad. Then I slammed the window shut and ran to the stairs and waited while watching my mom read the newspaper. A few moments later, my brother walks in the front door looking worried and says, "Mom, I'm so sorry." My mom, who had no idea what was going on, said, "About what?" while slowly putting the newspaper down. "For making a skateboard ramp out of the wood from the bunk bed." "You did what?" Exclamation point at that moment. A wave of shock and realization swept across my brother's face and our eyes met. I let out the biggest evilest little sister cackle and ran into my room. We are adults now and still laugh about it from time to time. A friend kept trying to steal my sushi off my plate at a sushi restaurant. So while she wasn't looking, I stuffed it full of wasabi, put a bit of fish back on top to cover my tracks, and pretended to not be looking when she started reaching towards it. She tossed it into her mouth, started chewing down, and I just swung my head towards her to say, "You fricked up." 5 minutes of coughing, muffled screaming, and copious amounts of water later, she had learned her lesson. Not sure if this will be seen, but my best New Year's was that of 1999. I was 9 years old at the time and I worked together with my dad to pull off the greatest prank in history. A few minutes before midnight I synced up a wristwatch with the countdown on TV. My dad pointed me in the direction of the breaker, which was in our garage, and showed me the lever to pull, which would cut all power to the house. Now I don't know if you remember the hype, but the year 2000 was supposed to destroy all of our computers and technology, sending us back to the Stone Ages. So the moment grew closer as I watched the seconds tick by on my wristwatch. It soon became apparent that I wouldn't need it, as I could hear all my relatives inside counting down 10, 9, 8, 2, 1. I pulled the lever at the perfect timing and everything went black. The first thing I heard was from my aunt, "Oh my god. It hit Y2K hit." I was only going to leave the power out for 10 seconds or so, but the lever was stuck and I couldn't get it back up for about 2 minutes. During which the whole time I heard my family freaking out. Then eventually they looked outside and started to wonder why our neighbors still had power. Haha, thinking back, I really wish we would have recorded this. Probably could have won $10,000. TL. DR pulled the greatest prank in history on New Year's Eve 1999. The AM supervisor at my office is a short little man who likes to work from a laptop on a rolling adjustable desk. For over a year I gradually raised the height of this desk and watched as he went from sitting on a stool to an adjustable tall task chair to standing. Last week he removed the wheels from the desk to lower the height. He doesn't realize it's adjustable. My brother used my Netflix and I made his profile a kids account. He likes kids shows and movies, so he went 2 weeks without noticing. I waited a month or so and randomly changed it again. My timing was impeccable. He was watching The Punisher. Hey you. Thanks for watching Reddit Stories. If you enjoyed the video, consider hitting like and subscribing. Your support means a lot. We also have a Discord community where we will be running giveaways and fun surprises throughout the year. Come along and meet some new friends. You look great today.